Hello, everyone.
Hey there, folks.
This is AV, maybe Alex. We're not sure yet.
All right. And this is Rita.
You're listening to I Don't Know Her, the podcast where we talk about women
And some other folks.
that you've probably never heard of.
But you should have. And today you will.
Correct. I'm actually thinking about doing a cis man.
Dum, dum, dum.
So I'd really love your feedback, everybody. Is that something you'd be interested in? Or are you like, hell no, they have their own shit?
Ooh, let's run a poll on Insta. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I feel like we should. Yeah, here's what I'll say.
Okay.
He was instrumental in helping trans people become their true selves.
Ooh.
Hence the reason why I'm interested in him.
Yes.
At a time when that was not acceptable in the medical community.
That would probably be very interesting.
Yes. Okay, so that's my idea. If you're interested in that and you want to tell us that's something you'd like to hear about, let me know, because I'm really on the fence about whether or not to do a dude who's just a gendered, born dude.
Pandemic, murder bees. Let's do this.
Murder bees. That's like pulling out a reference from 2007. That feels so old.
I'm old.
I know, we are old. It happened. Our prime years were fucking eaten up by a goddamn pandemic.
Yep.
I had a friend who
out to seed.
I had a friend who said that. They were like, I was 30 when it started and now I'm almost like, they're like 31. They're like, now I'm turning 34. I was like,
ooh, that was the better part of your 30s.
That's all the good year. I mean, I love my 30s, but like the good years when you feel good.
Yeah.
That's like 30 to 35.
30 was my favorite year.
Yeah, I would actually, I loved, I would say 32. What a good year. What a good year. So, if you don't know already, I can't remember if I've talked about this on the show, but Abby, my wife, is trying, hopefully will succeed at becoming a firefighter.
Super excited. She's trying really hard.
Yes.
And very focused and very committed.
And it takes a lot of hoops and various things to jump through to be even able to apply.
Like, I knew there were things. I didn't know the things that were, like, I'm going to let you describe.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, in order for her to even apply, she has to go through an entire nationally certified EMT training program. So for here, most people end up going through one of our community colleges, and it takes them, I think, 4 quarters. So 2 whole school years to get through it.
Whoa.
And the reason why Abby's even doing this right now is because there are quite a few openings in the local fire departments. And she wants to get in there. And so she has to be ready a lot sooner than that. So she ended up enrolling in a program in Arizona, an EMT training program that was 3 weeks long. And it was 12-hour days, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all day, every day.
She was gone for a while.
Yeah. And I mean, she was wiped at the end of every day. And she passed the course. Great. Then she came home and she took the national test. Passed it, so now she is a nationally certified EMT. And now the next parts are that she has to pass the physical exam, the physical aptitude exam, and also the written exam. And the exams are really hard. Like, the written exam will be like, look at this diagram of a building, like the interior of a building, and let's say there's a fire in room E. And you are entering through the east entrance. How much fire hose will you need to be able to get to room E? And so you have to measure like the whole house, right? The whole building. And Abby took the test once already and did not pass. But let me tell you, she did it online. So she was not allowed to use paper and pencil.
Oh.
Like, to do any of that math. She couldn't draw a diagram. She couldn't write anything down. She couldn't like add or multiply or subtract or anything like using a pencil.
Why?
Because they online they have like monitors. She had to have her computer set up and her phone set up with the video on her so that they could watch her the entire time.
That is bananas.
Yeah, it's really intense. So she even she had a beanie on and they wouldn't even let her take the test with a beanie on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean it's super intense. So she didn't love that. and I honestly do believe that she didn't pass it because she couldn't like physically do the problems.
I don't think most people could.
No. And she was lucky because her computer has a touchscreen because it has a tablet side to it as well. So she was actually able to use the testing software provided a little notepad that you could like write on your screen if you had a touchscreen. So if you don't have a touchscreen, you just shit out of luck.
Yeah.
But she ended up signing up for the written test that's going to be here in Spokane that's like in person so that she will be able to use a pencil.
A pencil? Yeah.
And potentially do some math. And then she's doing the physical exam next week. So we had actually taken a trip over to Kent, Washington, because the majority of the physical exams are in person in Kent, which is across the state. We went there and she did the practice test the day before and the orientation. And thank God, because she learned real fucking fast that she was not ready for that physical exam.
Yeah, I think, it was just underestimated.
Yeah, she works a physical labor job and she's in good shape. So she was like, oh, I'll be fine. It's no big deal. And that the thing is that the physical test is no fucking joke. It is so hard. There are 8 events that you have to complete in you have a total amount of 10 minutes and 20 seconds to complete all 8 events. It's hard.
Wild. Yeah.
And they involve things like the first one is that she has to go on the stair mill with a 50-pound vest on with a 25-pound weight added to it to mimic a hose being like around her shoulders. And she has to do the stairs. And also the other thing that's crazy about this test is that you cannot run. So even though it's timed, in between events, you cannot run from one event to the other. You will get like dinged for it and eventually you'll get failed if you run.
Yeah.
And then the stair mill is like at a pace where they do 1 step per second. And I'll tell you what, you might think that sounds reasonable, but I dare you right now to go climb the steps in your house or wherever you are, your building, and try to do that with a metronome that only allows you to do 1 step every second.
And do that 185 times.
Yeah, it's 180, yeah. 180. It's 3 minutes. She has to do 3 minutes on the stair mill. And it is just so hard to be that slow. Like 1 step per second is dreadfully slow.
It probably burns.
Yeah. So that's the first thing they have to do. And then right after that, they have to drag a hose that weighs like 60 pounds with the vest on still. Like the whole thing has to be done with this 50-pound vest on. And then she has to swing a 10-pound sledgehammer against a thing until it beeps or whatever, until it says that you're done, that you've hit the weight limit. Because you're technically mimicking a breach. So if you had to break into somebody's home or whatever because they were trapped inside, you'd have to be like, how many times did it take before the door broke?
Yeah.
And then she has to drag a body, 165-pound mannequin. She has to drag it and do like a couple right angles and things like that. So you have to like turn the body. And by the time she had gotten through the stairs and then got to this body drag, she was like, I'm fucking done. And her legs just gave out and she just couldn't do it. And so she came outside and she was still shaking from how intense the events were at the practice test. And she was like, I'm not ready. Mm-hmm. So the coach in me came out. I was like, we have 4 weeks to get you ready for the next test.
Was there a spreadsheet?
There was a spreadsheet. There's a spreadsheet involved. I created a training plan for her that was like...
I've been spreadsheeted by Amy before.
You want a dietary tracker? You want to have a training schedule? I will spreadsheet that shit for you.
No lie.
And, we've also been cutting down on our alcohol quite a bit. We've been practicing mindful moderation, the whole year of 2022, and we've been really great at it. And I think that's also really helped. Mm-hmm. But I created this training schedule for her to try to, build up her endurance. We bought a fucking 60-pound vest And today we did the mock course because it's a week from today that she'll be doing the actual test. And she fucking killed it. She had 35 seconds to spare at the end.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
So proud of her.
I'm so proud of her. And so she ended up talking with a person that we know who recently got through her probation period as a firefighter here. And she's also a queer woman. So it was like really like, okay, I want to get your vibes on. How is this going? And for the most part, she said that like she hasn't personally experienced anything super misogynistic or homophobic or anything like that. But she did say one of the things that happens in the probationary period is that they have to switch every 2 months to a new fire station. And so obviously the people who are in that fire station just don't give a shit about you.
But they're people that have been there forever. It's like more of like you're just getting in the way.
Yeah, like why would you build a relationship with somebody you know is going to be gone in 7 weeks? Like it just seems pointless. So I get why they're like not super thrilled about these new recruits just coming in and probably getting in the fucking way all the time.
Yeah.
Until they learn, right? But our friend also told Abby that she did happen to notice that when the men who were on probation would come in, they were often received much more warmly, and like they weren't like included more or anything, but like you could tell that people were like not afraid they wouldn't live up to the expectations. Like there was never any like, are you sure you can do this mentality? It was just like accepted that they could do it.
Yeah.
Whereas like she has definitely said she's experienced that like, are you sure you can do this? And it's like, again,
I'm not surprised.
The
honestly.
physical test is not changed based on anything. Like you have to complete the same test no matter what you identify as or what you're biologically marked on your birth certificate. Like you are going to take the same test.
Yeah, you're going to climb those stairs for 3 minutes. You're going to drag that body. You're going to throw that sledgehammer.
So when you show up, first off, the people who are at those probationary periods, they've already also finished academy, which is really physically grueling. Like one of the things that the people told Abby at the first, when she did the practice test in Kent, they said, hey, between now and academy, do this, whatever you were training to be able to pass this test, continue doing that all the way until academy begins.
Oh, wow.
Because otherwise you're going to be shredded during the academy because this is what it's like every day, all day.
Yeah, it's not for 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's not a 10-minute and 20-second thing and then you're done. It's all day, every day. You're going to be climbing ladders. You're going to be hitting things. You're going to be trying to breach ceilings and you're going to be dragging bodies. So you have to be able to do those things. And so I think that's all the more frustrating to hear that this person who's already done, first off, I think she worked as a paramedic for a couple of years. So she's already like fucking lifted bodies before.
Yeah.
So she already served as a paramedic. She's done her training. She has done the test. She's done the academy. Now she's here on the last step before she's an official employee, which is this probationary period. Like, why would there ever be an assumption that somebody who had gotten that far couldn't hack it?
Like, we did the same thing, bitch.
Yeah. And you were once in my same spot.
Yeah.
Like, it just
Do you
seems...
think that's that kind of like schoolyard mentality of like the new kid in class and everyone trying to size up kind of thing, but especially for women?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's that assumption that's like, yeah, right. I don't think you're actually going to be able to cut it. And it's so frustrating. I absolutely hate that kind of shit.
Me too.
Because it is isolating. You know, like our friend has said that there are just not very many women on the force, like in the firefighters at all, across the whole city. However, we have statistically more women firefighters than Pittsburgh does. And Pittsburgh is a larger city with more fire stations.
With more fire stations.
Like we have literally a higher number of women firefighters, which means that like our per capita is like twice that of Pittsburgh for female firefighters to male. So like that is encouraging. that we have more women, but it's still like abysmal. I think I read it in an article and it was like, I don't know, 12. It was not a lot.
Ooh.
It was not a lot. It was not cute. So,
I would imagine in the bigger cities, it would probably be even harder, especially those old school firefighter cities like Chicago. And
yeah. We had another friend who had been a firefighter before and is no longer a firefighter. And they said, like, things are just totally different now. There are more women. There are more people of color. There are more queer people. So hopefully that means that as she gets into this, it'll be accepting and a comfortable place for her. I'm also personally just a little bit shocked at how hard it is to become a firefighter compared to how hard it is to become a police officer.
Same.
Like, a firefighter's job is very important.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't carry a gun. They don't have the opportunity to kill somebody.
Yes.
And they have to go through more training than somebody who has a deadly weapon.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, I just personally am like a little bit like, I'm not shocked because that seems right.
Yeah, like I don't know how to describe that feeling. It's like you're not shocked. Like, I feel disappointed.
Yeah, I'm like not shocked, but I'm disgusted to know.
Yes. But you're also just accepting it because it all makes sense.
Yeah, I'm like, of course, like I actually was telling a friend this the other day, like I had a principal who one day texted me and was like, hey, I play in it was a baseball league or whatever. I play in an amateur league with some old like firefighters and stuff like that. And there is a guy here who has a recruit who needs some help so that he can pass the tests. And I said, I have an English teacher on staff who'd be great. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh yeah, sure, fine. Like send my info. He meant a police officer recruit.
Oh.
I didn't quite get that at the beginning.
Well, I mean, they didn't say.
Yeah, he didn't specify. And then when I got into this situation, which was very awkward and uncomfortable for me, I kind of discovered that the reason why they wanted this is because this guy like literally could hardly write a sentence.
Oh.
And they wanted him to pass.
Oh. Okay.
And I was just a little bit like, guys, maybe not the right choice.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you have to be Shakespeare in order to become any kind of like person in a field like that. But like, I do hope that you have some kind of understanding and knowledge of like how to communicate.
Because you need to write reports.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
important data that can be used in a courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
People's lives depend on that information.
And he couldn't understand how to write a report. It was wild. It was truly wild. Like I actually saw like side by side reports of like that they were on the same call. It's like two recruits and one person had like this happened and then this person said this and then this happened and then this happened. Because it has to be like basically minute by minute what happened on the call has to be in your report. And the other person was just like, we went to the door, we talked to him, it was fine.
Oh no,
that's just not good.
That's not good.
And I just think like you have to have an attention to detail. You need to have a really great memory. You need to be able to communicate with people. You need to have a calm demeanor. Obviously, none of those things necessarily happen because otherwise we wouldn't have as many issues as we do with policing. But like, wow, I was shocked. And now to see how much Abby has to go through to become a firefighter, I was like, oh my God, no wonder we have so many fucking issues. But anyway, if you've got any time to spare, any thoughts to spare, please send Abby some very good vibes.
Good vibes.
On Sunday.
Alrighty. Ready to do it to it?
I am.
Okay. I'm going to preface with, this was like, it's not too crazy. She's not too crazy, but this was like kind of hard for me to do.
Okay.
Because it's something that I kind of don't like.
Oh.
That she does.
Oh.
And
okay.
so I'll just...
That's how I felt about the Fabulous Moolah. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
She was the wrestler woman who initially was like, I thought she was just so funny and cool. And then I found out she was actually involved in some not great shit. And I was like, wow, this took a turn.
Well, her name is, love her name, Helen Martini.
Martini?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about Helen Martini. I don't know who she is.
She's the first female zookeeper appointed to the Bronx Zoo.
Oh.
So this way was complicated for me internally. I hate zoos.
Yeah, I do too.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is IMO, my opinion. I think they're cruel. Mm-hmm. I like sanctuaries where these are animals that needed the help. Mm-hmm. Zoos are like purely for money. And I don't like the idea of animals in cages.
Yeah.
And even going to zoos, I do not go to the fair anymore.
Oh, I see. Well, I won't go to circuses.
Yeah, things like that.
No way. I actually worked a circus when I was in college. I worked in like facilities, so I would work concerts and other events. And one of the weekends I had to work the circus. And after seeing that as an adult, a young adult, but I was an adult, I was like, oh my God.
This is terrible.
No, none of us should be participating in this. Burn it to the ground.
Yeah, I'm just not I feel like, because she's born in 1912, so this is going back a little bit further. Mm-hmm. But I feel like nowadays, the strict use of animals for entertainment, I think is very cruel.
Yeah, I'm really definitely on the side of that should now be illegal.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a thing anymore.
We do not need to have animals that do tricks for people.
Or just like, I remember when Isai was really little, we took him to a zoo. I think it was in Portland. And there was this bear. I remember seeing it was just pacing. It would like touch a wall and then it would touch the other wall. And it would touch a wall and it would touch the other wall.
And they'll like pant.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, that is anxiety. That is stress. That is not a happy animal.
No. Yeah, zoos are complicated. I do know that there are more humane zoos, right? Where like the animals that they have in their facilities generally were pulled from captivity already. They were used in like sometimes it's people the animals they get are like people who've like decided that they want a tiger as a pet, and it gets confiscated and it can't obviously be released to the wild because it has no skills.
Yeah.
So it'll get donated or whatever to a zoo. Those ones I have less of an issue with, but it's like, I don't want to sit in a facility and wonder if every single one of your animals came from a situation like that, or if you like bought one when you were in Madagascar and like just brought it here to fucking Florida. Like, I don't want that. I don't want Billings, Montana. No, thank you. Like, you don't need to have an orangutan.
Well, and then this is a complicated issue too, because then there's like animals that are dying off. So then they will facilitate them to breed them, keep the species alive. Then also is like, well, is Mother Nature telling you that maybe we shouldn't have this anymore? I don't know.
Well, no, usually it's because of human interference. So it's not like a natural progression of extinction. It's like, we keep taking away their habitat. Or in the case of like elephants and things like that, like poachers keep killing them.
Yes.
So that's why there aren't very many of them.
And so that's where I'm like,
so you're a little bit on the fence about her.
I'm on the fence about her. I still think her story is interesting. And like we said, we share complicated people. So, I mean, she's not terribly complicated. She did nice things. I'm just like, personally for me, I was just like, oh, okay.
Anti-zoo.
I am anti-zoo.
I'm anti-zoo too.
Yeah.
Especially like aquarium type stuff, like the big ones like SeaWorld.
No,
torture.
I will never, ever go to a sea. I've never been. I never will. I remember like Isai one time was like, can we like go to one of those? I was like, no.
I mean, I think all millennials were ruined by watching
Blackfish?
Free Willy.
Oh, Free Willy.
Also Blackfish.
I went the other way.
But it's like we were all watched Free Willy as a kid, and I like immediately was like, down with SeaWorld.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, and then there were like a series of them. It was like Free Willy 2. I was like, okay, now we're getting out of hand. We don't need 3
now
of
we're
them.
just making money. How many times can we set that whale free? All right, so she was born in St. John's, Canada on June 5th, 1912. Not quite sure where St. John's is.
That's on the east side of the country. I believe it's like north of New York.
Okay, well, this will make sense then. So her mother, Alice, was a homemaker, and her father, Matthew, was a merchant seaman. She had 2 brothers. Not a whole lot about her home life, family life. It just seemed like they were very like a simple family, not overly rich, but not destitute. She said she had a love for animals from the get-go. And even when she was a little girl, she had this really charming story of her mother gives her money to go buy a pair of shoes. And she comes home with a bird instead.
I think I did that once and it was a hamster.
I did that with a cat. I was at a friend's house and there was a guy who was across the fence from my friend's house and he had kittens. And I was like, oh, I want one. And he goes, well, how much money do you have? And I said, well, I have $1. And he says, I'll take your $1. And so I got the kitten. I put it in my jacket.
Oh, no.
And I ran home upstairs and I told my sister, I was like, look what I got. And I like unzipped it. And she's like, you cannot keep that. And I was like, yes, I can. She's like, where are you going to put it? I was like, I don't know.
In my bedroom.
Well, she comes home with this bird and she shows up and she's in tears because she knows she's going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But her mother let her keep the bird. Yeah.
That reminds me of Eugenia. Remember her? The marine biologist.
Oh, yeah. Where she came home with weird stuff.
She came up with real weird shit. And her mom was just like, what the fuck?
I'm also not quite sure what it was, but Helen was born with an eye affliction. And it was steadily getting worse. And her doctor told her that she was eventually going to be completely blind. And around the time that she was 10 years old, Helen's father suddenly died. I couldn't figure out how he died. Might have died through work because, I mean, being on the water is dangerous.
Yeah.
It didn't say that he got sick or anything like that. So I'm assuming maybe he just died because of his job. So her mother decides to pick the family up and move them to New York. So that's why I was saying that makes sense because I wasn't quite sure. I was like, where the heck were they in Canada where they went to New York?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Niagara is in Canada.
True.
It's like both.
Also, her mother wanted to take her to the city because she thought she might get better like doctors. And she wanted to see if they could do something to save her eyesight. She did find a doctor that said that he could do surgery on her, but it would be a series of surgeries that she would have to do. So I'm not quite sure like what you would have that would require you to have multiple surgery on your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe something now that's so treatable we don't even consider it a big issue. Because I'm like wondering if it was like something like macular degeneration or something like that.
So they moved to New York, and when she starts getting these series of surgeries, she's 13. So that's probably not a fun time as a teenager. No. The healing time, obviously probably the pain.
And you probably have to wear like eye patches and weird headgear and shit. And teenagers are merciless.
Oh, yeah. And also you're like coming into your own person. Mm-hmm. So she was a little bit recluse during that time. Her eyesight was saved, though, and she never did go blind.
Oh, that's good. I mean, whatever that guy did, he did it right.
He did it right. She said going through that process really made her believe that difficult situations and hard cases should never be given up on. Mm. And that mindset of hers ends up like carrying over to when she was caring for animals. After high school, she met and married her husband, Fred Martini, which, I'm sorry, it's such a cute name.
I mean, I
Helen
thought
Martini.
They made it up.
No.
That's a real name?
That's a name.
I thought it was like, like when you want to like go into show business. And I would say that a zoo is kind of like, related, especially at that point when you're like probably putting on shows for people. But it's like, I just assumed that she just fucking made it up as like a stage name.
As Mrs. Martini, the zookeeper.
Yeah. It's a real name.
That would make a great book.
That would also make a great drag name.
Mrs. Martini.
Mrs. Martini.
Hell yeah. You've been watching too much Drag Race.
Oh my God, it's so bad.
Helen and Fred had a really sweet and gentle relationship. They were both just kind of quiet, very like nice, friendly, loving people. One of the things that they liked to do was go to the Bronx Zoo. They would go almost like every week. Fred was a huge animal lover, just like her. Fred was a jeweler, and even though it was a good job, he really felt like it wasn't like exactly what he wanted to do, which I mean, happens. A job was available at the zoo, and he was considering to apply, and Helen was just like, go for it. Like, life's too short. We want to be happy. If you want to apply, go for it. So he ends up getting the job, and they're like super, super happy about it. He eventually works his way into being in charge of the lion house.
Oh.
Yeah. Which apparently, I looked at a map of the Bronx Zoo. It's enormous.
Yeah, I think I've heard that, but I've never seen it, obviously.
It is probably one of the largest facilities in the U.S.
Does it still exist?
It still does, I think.
You think?
Well, I was looking at from when it was open in her time.
Let's see.
And like just these like ornate exhibits and gates.
Let's see. Does the Bronx Zoo still exist? It is. It still exists. It opens at 10 a.m. on Monday.
Okay, let's go.
We'll just make a quick trip over
To the Bronx.
to the Bronx.
There was also something that they were really wanting to do. They wanted to have a family. So Helen wanted to be a mom more than anything. I wasn't too sure. I think it was like maybe 2 to 3 years into their marriage. They eventually get pregnant. There were complications, though, and Helen had to be taken to the hospital, and she lost her baby.
Oh, no. And how old is she at this point? Do you know?
She's probably like mid-20s.
Okay.
I think from what I assumed was, when I was reading her information, they had said she had all of this baby stuff already.
Oh.
Like she had a crib
no.
and she had formula, she had clothes. So I'm assuming she was far into her pregnancy because that's your stuff. You're getting ready to bring a baby home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, how heartbreaking.
Yes. She got an even bigger blow. The doctor told her that because of her complications, she wasn't going to be able to have kids ever.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. And she and Fred were just devastated because that was something that she really, really wanted. She was really struggling mentally to like wrap her head around that news. Fred could tell she was in a really bad spot. Around this time, the same time of after losing their baby, one of the lionesses at the zoo abandoned her male cub. She like wouldn't feed him. She wouldn't clean him. And she was
weird.
completely like ignoring him. And it was something that kept happening with the big cats at the zoo, where they were just not, the females were not taking care of their babies.
Weird.
And not a single cub had survived at the zoo at all.
Was there any like scientific explanation for that?
They were thinking that it was something of the animals because they were in captivity, that they were losing their instinct to like encourage the growth of like their babies.
That seems wild. I wonder if it actually is more like postpartum depression.
And not being able to like function and take care of your baby.
Yeah. Because I think that I've read somewhere that they have started to think that animals can have that. And that animals that reject their offspring are often probably experiencing that.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, that makes me feel like that's maybe what was going on.
Yeah.
Because like I can't imagine they would lose the instinct to care for their offspring. I think it would become more like, why?
Yeah.
Why would I?
What's the goal here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave the nest.
Nope.
That's awful, though.
Well, Fred decides to bring the cub home. And
to their apartment?
To their apartment.
Okay.
And she said it was so new, its eyes were still closed.
Well, that's too early.
And so Helen is like, we can't have a cub in the house. Yeah. He tells her that the mother rejected it. He just asks her, like, do you think you could probably try and save it? So the first thing she did was like, she washes the cub because he was all dirty. She ends up taking the formula and bottles that were supposed to be used for her own baby. And she ends up using it to feed the cub.
Except that's not the right nutrients.
Yeah. So she has absolutely zero experience. She just said she was going off of what she said was instinct. So like through trial and error.
Yeah, instinct for a human child.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I am really upset already.
Oh, so through trial and error, she said she slowly went to like evaporated milk.
Okay.
And then she would do like a little mixture of water in that. And she had to do like, I think she said she was doing like every 2.5 to 3 hours of feeding this cub and taking care of it and like cleaning it up after it went to the bathroom. So she was with this cub around the clock,
Yeah.
taking care of it. She worked out a feeding schedule. She decided to keep a log. She kept a growth log, a behavior log, and just making sure like she could keep track of like make sure that this cub was being taken care of. And she named it MacArthur, which I thought was really funny. That's a weird name for a lion.
Yeah, it is. Also, it reminds me of like the MacArthur Genius Grant. Like that, it's a very like prominent name.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird to name a cub after that.
And so this is too something I struggled with while reading her like history. She very much absorbed it like as a baby.
Oh yeah. I saw that coming from a mile away.
So she ends up putting it in the crib that they bought
for fuck's
for her
sake.
baby. She uses a hot water bottle to keep it warm. She keeps feeding it. About after 11 days, she said MacArthur opened his eyes, and after 2 weeks, he started getting teeth. He took his first steps too, and once he started walking, she did a lot of research, and she went to the zoo and asked a lot of questions about the diet that needs to be like proper for this.
Yeah,
animal.
they're carnivores.
They are carnivores. So she started adding like chopped meat. She was doing bone meal and feeding the cub that. So she ends up doing this for about 2 months, and she successfully like keeps the cub alive. And so then the zoo was like, okay, now the cub can come back. She did not want to let go of the cub, but she gave it back to the zoo.
Well, thank God. I was
Yes.
like, do not tell me that this woman.
She ran across the country and stole a lion cub.
Yeah.
No, she gives the cub back to the zoo. What she didn't know was that the zoo didn't intend to keep MacArthur. They ended up shipping him to another city and giving him to another zoo. So
But
she
didn't they want a cub? Wasn't that the whole fucking
That was the whole
point?
point, but I think they sold it.
Oh, gross.
I know. And she was upset because she wanted to be able to like still go see him and see the progress and make sure. I mean, that was the goal, was to keep him there. So pretty soon after MacArthur left, Fred comes home with another surprise.
Another goddamn cub?
A tigress had abandoned not just one cub, but all 3 of her cubs.
Oh my God, this lady has to take care of 3 tigers?
So she's put in charge of taking care of 3 tigers.
Oh my God. This is not good.
She said when she saw them, she like touched them. She was like just trying to feel how they felt physically. And she said they were just frail and they were thin. They were barely moving.
Are they brand new also, like the lion cub was?
I feel like they were very young. I don't know if they were as brand new as MacArthur was. She ends up naming them Raniganj, Dhaka, and Rajpur. She gave them Indian names. I don't know why.
Well, because tigers are associated with India, I guess.
Okay. She raises them. She says the tigers were like super energetic. They put on weight very quickly. So obviously their diet was working, but the 3 tigers were fucking a lot of work.
Can you imagine
Around
you would
the clock.
not, all of your furniture be ruined?
Oh yeah. She said that they were chewing on everything, getting into everything. She used to wash their clothes in the bathtub and the tigers would jump into the bathtub. Her neighbors were, because they're in an apartment.
Yeah.
Her neighbors were getting like annoyed because they were on the 3rd floor and all they hear is like,
And probably, but like way louder because
yeah.
it's a fucking tiger. I would be livid. I would
would need
also
to
be
move.
like, I am living in a crazy house with this fucking lady who has tigers in her house. Like, this is unacceptable.
Oh yeah. So she ends up taking care of these tigers for 3 months until it was time again to give them back to the zoo. This time the cubs were able to go back to the Bronx Zoo. They weren't like sent anywhere else. And so Helen would go there daily to be with them. And at this time, she's not employed. Like, she's not getting paid.
Well, I would assume that's the case because you said she had originally just wanted to be like she wanted to be a housewife and a mom.
Yes.
So her husband was the only one employed. So she's just helping him out.
Yep. Taking care of
Free labor.
animals. She ends up buying like blankets, toys. She decorates their glass panel like display cage where like the people come up to the glass and look at the tigers. She'd feed them, she'd bathe them. She wouldn't leave until they were asleep.
Okay, I gotta stop for a second. That is the third time you've talked about her bathing a cat. And I just want to make it very clear that that's not cool. Cats don't need to be bathed. They bathe themselves. That's their whole deal. That's the thing that makes them neat.
Yeah, you don't have to do it.
I'm like, why is the zoo letting her do any of this? But specifically, why are they letting her fucking bathe a tiger? Seems not great.
Seems not okay.
Like, do the zoo people not know? The zoo people are like, oh yeah, baths for cats. That sounds great.
Well, like, and some of the stuff that I was reading, they would say like they didn't ever really like notice what she was doing, and I was like, I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, she's there a lot. It sounds like
she's there a lot, but like, how could you not be employed? Or maybe Fred was letting her do it and not telling anybody.
Yeah, is it like an after hours thing? Like he's like, okay, I'll bring you in after hours. Like, what is happening?
The tigers
feels a little shady.
Well, she ends up beginning to take care of more and more animals. So she ends up taking care of a black panther. She does the same thing that she did with the tiger and the lion. She also started helping care for baby gorillas, marmosets. What is a marmoset?
I was just gonna ask that. I know
It's like a weasel, isn't it?
No. Let me look it up. Marmoset. How do you even say that? How do you spell that?
Marmosets. Someone's out there and they're like, I know what a marmoset is.
Yeah, it's a tiny little monkey.
Oh, it's a monkey?
Yeah, they're a very small monkey. Well, yeah. The common marmoset is 7.4 inches.
Oh, that's tiny.
Yeah, they're real small. Look, that little baby is on that person's finger.
Oh my goodness, that's
they're
kind
tiny.
of adorable. His little hand.
Yeah, they're the ones that, okay, yeah. They're the ones that have the like big tufts that come out the sides of their head.
Okay.
Like by where their ears are. And then they kind of have like the markings almost of a raccoon on their tails.
Oh, those are cute.
Yeah, and they have like bright orange eyes. Yeah, that's the marmoset.
I might have had one of those if I was a little crazier. Well, she starts taking care of like baby deer, squirrels.
Wait, though, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Wait.
Deer. There's literally a picture of her with like a deer.
But like the deer aren't at the zoo, right?
I think they were. She has a deer with her.
Okay.
Yeah. She even took care of skunks too.
Well, they're actually really docile.
They're like cats.
Yeah. They're like cats that stink sometimes.
Yes. Well, some cats stink too.
Yeah, that's true.
Always thinking of her tigers, though. She ended up asking Fred if there was a space that they could possibly use at the zoo to create like a separate housing facility for the tigers. Something that was separate from the display cage, so they weren't always like on display.
Mm.
There was an old storeroom there, so without asking, I mean, Fred was like, here you go, here's the storeroom. She just took it upon herself to clean it out. She painted it, she decorated it, and she created what she called a nursery for the tigers.
I am a little bit aghast. Also, when you say a storeroom, I just assume a room with no windows, and I think I don't like that.
There were windows.
Oh,
because I
thank
saw
God.
pictures of the storeroom.
All right. It makes me feel better.
I really do think she thought of these animals as like children.
It sounds like it. I'm a little concerned for her.
Yes. There's a picture of her feeding the panther with a bottle, and it like has a bib on.
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry if I'm making anybody a little cringy out there. But
yeah, she...
I stuck through it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to share this story because why not?
As they say in the South, bless her heart.
I love that phrase.
I do too.
And like I said, she didn't do this with permission, so I'm assuming that they were giving her leeway because she was taking care of these animals for free. The zoo officials came to look at what she had put together because they needed to see, like, make sure it was actually something that was going to be good and not harmful. They were really shocked at like what she had created for the tigers. It was actually a really nice space. So that's when they decided to officially offer her a job as a zookeeper.
Well, that's good because like she's already been doing it.
Yes. They put her in charge of the tigers full time, and they had her like just kind of how Fred was in charge of the lion house. She was in charge of like this tiger house. And that was going to be in 1945 is when she became
Oh my gosh.
the
So it's like the height of the, like just now when the U.S. is going to enter World War II.
Oh, yeah. This was the first female that was ever appointed as a zookeeper for the Bronx Zoo. Her and her tigers started gaining a lot of attention. She began to start being like featured in newspapers. She was featured in Life magazine. She was given like a whole spread.
Life magazine was a really cool magazine. I wish we could bring that back because it had such good photography in it.
There is a picture of her with a tiger that I really love the picture because she's just full on like enveloped in this tiger. You can see that she loves this animal. And the tiger's just cute. But also it's like, is that exploitation? I don't know. I'm really sick over this.
You're very torn.
I'm very torn. She was also featured in an article written for the New York Times called Babies That Growl, which I thought was kind of funny. And that was written by Yvonne Sanderson, who was a zoologist at the same time as she was. Or a zoologist is different than a zookeeper.
It is.
It is.
They're the
Big time.
scientist.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas a zookeeper apparently can just be a woman who has a misplaced need for children.
She continued to care for the tigers for another year, but they got bigger, stronger. It was time to move them to an outside enclosure so they'd have more space. Once they were in there, the zoo officials told Helen, like, you are going to have to stop going into the enclosure. Like, they thought they might eventually hurt her.
Yeah.
They're wild animals.
That's correct.
She insisted, like,
they're also carnivores and you are made of meat.
Yes. Well, she insisted, like, no, they're my babies. Like, they'll never do that. And they were very firm. And they told her, no, Helen, like, you're going to have to stop. Like, I know you love these animals, but you do not get to call the shots on this one.
Correct.
Yes. She began to lead, like, educational tours for zoo guests. And she would even, like, we've probably all seen it, interact with the cats.
Yeah.
In front of guests. And this is so-and-so.
Yeah, and they like, do a little like thing with food and show them a little trick, whatever.
So through her big cat program, she helped raise over 27 tigers. And it was her cubs that she helped save were the only cubs that had started to survive ever at the zoo. And a lot of the tigers started breeding. So actually, tigers were beginning to take care of their cubs as well. So I don't know what it was that she did that just maybe helped them feel more loved, comfortable. I'm not sure.
Or natural or normal, something.
Something like that.
Or like, this is our norm, so we're going to behave normally. I don't know.
She also continued to work she worked at the zoo till 1960, which I thought wasn't a whole lot of time. It was 15 years.
Well, she was officially hired in 1945, but she'd been taking care of animals, it sounds like, for a couple of years prior. So
maybe 20 years.
Yeah, maybe.
She ended up writing a book about her journey to becoming a zookeeper, and the book was called My Zoo Family. And that pretty much took care of her for the rest of her life. Like, her book was a huge hit.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It detailed, like, how she started with MacArthur, what it was like with each of her animals, like the personality of each animal, what she did to treat them, what it was like to be at the zoo every day, especially, like, having her and Fred's house full of animals. Like, yeah. I mean, I bet that would be a pretty adventurous story.
I mean, you know, when Abby used to work for the West Valley Outdoor Learning Center and she had to do those hawk and owl talks, and she would bring home the hawks or the owls.
That's right.
And they'd be in our house. And that was a pretty wild thing to be like.
Did that ever weird you out?
Yes. And I'll tell you what, because barn owls sound like murdered women when they scream. And that's their like call.
Oh.
They're terrifying. And so there would be a couple of times when we would be like lying in bed and in the middle of the night, because that's when they hunt,
Yeah.
is like at night. And we would hear like a blood curdling scream come from above us in our house. And it was just One-Eyed Willie.
Okay. But a little,
Yeah.
goosebumpy.
But it was so interesting to have these owls in our house, and like I would go up. We would keep them in the part of our house where like our dogs and our cat were not able to get to them, obviously, because we didn't want them to be stressed. And we would keep it very quiet in the room so that they wouldn't feel real weird. But it's just like really cool and weird to be like, there is a legitimate wild animal in my house right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were quite, large, some of them. Like they used to have this barred owl. Well, actually, she was a gray owl. Her name was Gray. And she was the sweetest owl. I mean, she had never been wild.
Mm-hmm.
So she'd always been around humans, and like you could pet her like you'd pet a cat.
Oh my gosh. And they're so soft.
She would close her eyes and like just get like really, she would nuzzle into your hand. And I was like, I will die for you. She was just the sweetest owl, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm an owl person now.
Owls are beautiful.
They're so incredible, and they're so smart. Definitely would never fuck with a great horned though. Nope. Mm-mm.
Those are huge.
They had two of them. They're massive. They had two of them at the center, and they hated people. Like they didn't want to see you. They didn't want to touch you. They were like, get the fuck out of my enclosure.
Oh my gosh. But
they have this strength. So here's a little fun fact about great horns is that, so when you put them on your arm, because like I did, you have a glove on. It's a really thick leather glove. And they have like a little leash. It has a special name. I can't remember what it's called at this moment. And you hold that in between your fingers so that if they were to like try to fly away, you would still have a hold of them. And you can feel like when, like if you move your arm a certain way and they feel like they're losing their balance, they'll grip you. And you could feel just with that grip that like, holy shit, I would be in serious danger if this this bird meant business. And, that was one of the facts they would teach the children is that like the great horned owls can split a broomstick handle in half.
Oh my gosh.
With the weight of the power in the grip in their feet.
Mm-hmm. That is insane.
So that's why I'm like, this is cool. I have had a taste of having a wild animal in my home, and I think it's neat as a temporary thing that you have for a reason and then never again.
Never again.
No thanks.
Well, she retired. I'm assuming like as soon as like her book is written and all the information that I found, it's like no more word of Fred. So I don't know if he died. And then her too is just like she wrote her book, she left the zoo, she was fine, and then she died. And I don't like that because like all of it's just highlighted in that story of her it's mainly her and the tigers are the main story. And a lot of children's books have been written about her. And they're very like playful and fun. And she had these tigers and look how cute. And there's just like, but she was like kind of troubled, I felt.
Yeah, it seems like she definitely had, like I said, really some misplaced like needs.
Which I mean, her energy went to a good spot. I mean, she's not like she was mean or cruel, but also tigers aren't pets.
Yeah. Yeah, a little problematic, I would say. But obviously we also have to take into consideration that at that moment in time, there was not necessarily the knowledge or understanding of like the ways in which captivity can ruin animals and why it's bad for them. And I mean, she probably just thought she was doing a good thing. And it's like, she's not the one who bred them.
Yeah.
She's the one who took care of their cubs when they weren't being taken care of.
And then also, like, I don't know, like if someone was like, this is going to die, if you don't try and help it, I'd be like, I don't want it to die.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would feel compelled to take care of the animal too. I would probably foolishly bring it into my house.
I would do that too. I'd be
Yeah.
like, this is my tiger.
I wouldn't keep it because that's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Well, she ended up passing away in 1994.
Whoa.
Yeah, so she lived for a hot minute.
1912 to 1994?
Mm-hmm. She was 81.
That's a long time. What a lifetime to cover. Like the entire 20th century, basically.
That's a lot of shit in there.
Yeah. 2 world wars.
In the beginning of the 90s, I would be out too. See 94, I'd be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
We've peaked.
Well, like one of the children's stories that I read was called Cubs in a Tub. And it was very, like I said, playful and childish. It was written by Candace Fleming.
Oh, she is such a popular picture book author.
And Mother of Tigers by Peter Catalanato. There was an article for the Museum of the City of New York called The Bronx Zoo's First Female Zookeeper by Elise Winks. And then some info from her book, My Zoo Family.
Lovely.
Yeah. It was interesting.
And we got to like joke around about animals. So that's always fun. I love
One thing
animals.
that I did like that she did was she established like a good feeding plan for the animals.
Right.
So
like the fact that she actually researched what their diet is and she wasn't like, okay, I guess I'll get a can of dog food for them.
Yeah, she said she actually did hours of research
Mm-hmm.
and like trying to find out specifically. I remember I read a piece in an article and then I lost it, but she said she added like this special like oil into the tigers' food. It was something that they had that was prevalent in like a fatty oil that's in a lot of the food that they usually, the animals that they eat, that just wasn't natural to what they had in the States. And so she was like trying to supplement this oil for them. And then she did other things like for the gorillas and for other
that's
animals.
right. She also took care of a gorilla.
She did. There's a picture of her with like a little baby gorilla.
Gorillas, okay. This is another millennial problem. I have like an affinity for gorillas because of Gorillas in the Mist. And like all of that stuff we learned about, because it was like such a hot topic when we were a kid. And you know, did you guys ever have those zoo books or whatever? It was like a magazine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like you would read about fucking gorillas in like every single issue. And so I was really passionate about the plight of the gorillas as a 9-year-old.
Well, that's why I'm just like, I liked her story. And also, there wasn't a whole lot else. Mm-hmm. And I dug.
That's how I felt about Barbara Hillary. It was just about her North Pole and South Pole adventures.
Like, I wanted to know more. It was very much focused on the tigers. But I was like, well, what else does she do for the zoo? You know?
Yeah, like, she's a zookeeper. So, like, what did she do? I mean, she was, it sounds like also, like, kind of like a docent.
Yeah.
So that means she did some educational programs and stuff. But yeah, it would have been nice to know a little bit more about, like, did she ever get promoted? Did she get any, like, other accolades?
Any policy? Did she, you know? And especially if she was there for 15, 20 years, I'm sure she did some shit.
Yeah,
not
that's
just
how I felt
the tigers.
About Barbara Hillary. It was like 30 years of her life was just like, it was as if it never happened. It was just like, here's what her childhood was like and where she went to school, and like she'd had breast cancer in her 20s. And then she retired from nursing at age like whatever. And I was like, what happened in between? Well,
Yeah.
what was her nursing career like?
Yeah.
What did she do?
1960 to 1994 is a long time. I'm sure she did other things.
Yeah, I'm sure she had a life.
Yes.
Yeah, that's always a little bit of a wonder for me when I'm researching somebody who's known for one specific thing. It's trying to create a whole 3-dimensional rounded picture of their life. Can sometimes be very difficult because you like all that people wrote about was the one thing that they were known for. So then all that other stuff just gets missing.
Also it was very like fanciful, like the New York Times article that I read. It was like, and she runs around with her baby tigers. Like, I'm just assuming like that's how they, you know, in a 1940s radio voice of talking about, it was just very like playful. Yeah. And then the video I watched was the same thing. It was just a man in that kind of voice narrating while she was like weighing a gorilla and like checking it for like, I don't know, see if it was healthy.
Does she even talk on the video?
She doesn't talk at all.
Oh my God, that's so frustrating.
And there's one video of her. That's the only one that I found.
Yeah, and that's why you didn't use it, right? It's
No,
you
because
said,
I don't care what that guy's saying.
like, I'd like to hear from her, thanks.
Well, that's my little blip.
Well, I liked it. I thought it was enjoyable. Upcoming, it's not going to be my next one, but in a couple of weeks, who knows when, I have to finish my research first. I'm definitely going to throw a 2-parter at you because there's too much information to be in one. And I don't want everybody to be like, oh my God, this episode is 3 hours long. What happened?
Did Rita die in her chair and Amy's just talking?
Yeah. So one of mine coming up is definitely going to be a 2-parter. So look forward to that, folks. It's going to be my biggest one of the whole series that we've ever done. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening.
We'd like to thank Lucas McIntyre, our editor, for doing our wonderful editing job. And
before you guys are hearing this, I will have posted our bonus episode for the month of March, which is an interview, as I've mentioned before on the show, an interview with a woman who works on basically improving the conditions in Texas state prisons. So make sure to subscribe to our Patreon in order to hear that amazing interview with such an incredible person. And that will be out already by the time you listen to this.
Also like to thank Jennifer Finch for our wonderful music. Also, our Barbara Hillary episode.
Oh, yes. If you listened to last week's episode, you know that we wanted to have the conversation that we talked about regarding our overstepping and our negligence in the Barbara Hillary episode. We wanted that put on the beginning of the episode that we had for her. But it kind of fell through the cracks. Lucas had a lot going on last week, so he did not get around to that, but rest assured it will be done. It's probably already done by the time you're listening to this today. Just wanted to be very transparent about it and accountable to that.
Alrighty.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Till next time, folks.